Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Max, Chief Evangelist over here at Hapily, aka the Charles Schwab of canceling subscriptions, aka the Idris Elba of invoice links. And today I've got a couple of exciting announcements in the world of workflows for those of you who are using Zabrick to connect your Stripe information to HubSpot. We've launched two brand new workflow actions that you can use in HubSpot to make things easier when it comes to managing the end date and cancellations of subscriptions automatically through workflows, as well as the automatic generation of Stripe invoices. Let's go ahead and pop into the workflows tool and I'll show you how they both work. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right in. This first one is incredibly simple. If you've ever wanted a HubSpot workflow to be able to cancel a Stripe subscription, we now have a purpose-built action that will do exactly that. So this will work in any type of workflow. So any sort of object that you want to build the workflow around, you can build in an action that will cancel a specific subscription in Stripe. Now, the way this works is that when you're inside of your workflow, however you set it up to trigger, right? You just go ahead and hit plus, and then if you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see that there is a new Zebra workflow action here that's called Cancel Zebra Subscription. I've got one set up right here, so I'm going to show you how it works. When we go into this action, the way we configure it, there's three different options that we have to kind of fill in here, and this is going to help compile the request that HubSpot is going to make to Stripe to actually cancel a specific subscription. So the way this works is first we need to bring in the subscription ID somehow. Now I'm using a Zebra subscription workflow right here, right? So in this case, this object going through the workflow has an ID that would match a subscription ID. So in this case, if I want this just to be within a subscription workflow, I can just drop the ID token in here and call it a day and I'll be good to go. Now, you could also have that subscription ID sitting on a different object. Let's say, for example, you have it sitting in a deal. You might have a deal with a deal property called Stripe subscription, and you may pass that over from that associated subscription record onto it, and you'd be able to do this off of deal records as well. Same thing goes for contacts or companies if that's how you're organizing your information. Either way, this workflow action just needs you to somehow get that subscription ID into here as a token, so when it makes that call over to Stripe, it knows which specific subscription that it's trying to cancel. Then you need to actually bring in a date here, right? So which date do you actually want to cancel it on? Now, this might be sitting in some date picker field that you have on some kind of object. Either way, as long as it is a date field, we'll be able to then use that to tell Stripe when to actually cancel the subscription. So which date? So again, you just have to have that held in some property somewhere. So maybe you're building a deal and you know that this subscription is going to have to cancel somewhere in the future, or maybe this is just a property sitting on somebody's record, right? When you go and change that date, you'll then be able to use that inside of this workflow, and that will be the date that it actually cancels on. Finally, we need a little cancellation reason here, and we can use an existing property to hold a cancellation reason. Now, the cancellation reason is also something that gets passed to Stripe when it makes that request to actually cancel a subscription. It needs a value for why that subscription is getting canceled. Now, you could hold this in a simple text field or a multi-line text field. Either way, it's going to take the value of whatever that property is, and it's going to use it as the cancellation reason as it goes and makes that cancellation request to Stripe. So that's how this one works. This is great if you have, for example, a subscription that needs to be able to cancel on a specific day, or you want to set this cancellation date property out to be somewhere in the future and have it actually cancel. Then there's a number of different reasons why you may want to cancel a subscription using a workflow in HubSpot based on the information you have in HubSpot, whether it's sitting on the deal record or some information provided to you on a form through a contact. There's an infinite amount of reasons you may want to cancel through a workflow, but that's how that one works. Let's go take a look at the next one. Now, this next one's a little bit more fun because it has to do with us making money instead of canceling making money, which that last action had us do. In this case, what we're doing is we're going to be using a workflow action that allows us to create a Stripe invoice with all the line items that we had on it. It's also going to generate a link that we can then use as a personalization token to send to somebody. So the whole idea is you could use this, for example, after you win a deal. What will happen is it will generate an invoice. You'll indicate who it needs to go to just by having a field with an email in it. And then it will actually generate that link, and then you can have a workflow that automatically emails that invoice link to whoever your customer is after you've closed the deal. So let me show you how it works. I've got this workflow open right here. I'm just going to move around a couple of things and then we can kind of get started. So you'll notice that this only works in deal-based workflows because you'd be doing this within the context of a deal changing a certain deal stage, generally, usually to close one, because that's when you're generating that invoice link and sending it off to somebody. So you'll only be able to do this in deal-based workflows. So again, if you go and hit the plus in your workflow here, scroll down to the bottom, you'll now see not only that last workflow action that we talked about for canceling subscriptions, but in these deal-based workflows, you will see these create Stripe invoice workflow actions that you have here. So let's take a look at how this action actually works. So if we go into the action here, what we'll notice is that we have 3 fields that we have to populate in order to create this invoice at the time this deal moves to a close one stage. The first is we need a customer email. Whenever you create a Stripe invoice, you need an email address to address the actual Stripe invoice to. So in this case, what we're doing is we're dropping in a deal token of invoice email. So what you're going to want to do to think ahead here a little bit is when you get to that like sort of close one stage, you should probably have a field on deals that's going to hold the email address of whoever these invoices should be going to, and ensure that you have it required that this field is filled out before you get to this deal stage that's eventually going to trigger this workflow that generates this. So you're going to want to make sure you have a property with that email, whether you type it in manually or you use another workflow to copy it in. There's a billion ways that you could get a value inside of a field that's going to hold an email. From there, you also need to have some sort of memo or description to create that actual invoice itself. So here it's going to ask for that, right? So again, you can just have a deal description property or some other property that you just call like invoice description or invoice memo. You might probably want to have that filled out too whenever you have that invoice email property filled out, right? So just make sure you have a value for that, and then it's going to drop in here. You also can do like manual words and letters in there if you want to, and just drop in different tokens if you want to like dynamically generate a string of text in here. That's totally fine. And then what you need to do is once this link is generated, it's going to go somewhere inside of a property. So you need to choose which deal property you want to dump this invoice into. Now there's an invoice link property that you can build. You can really build any sort of single line text field, and it will drop the URL in there. You just have to tell it which property to put it in. And this is ultimately going to be the personalization token that you use in a later email when you actually send out this invoice to someone. It'll just drop that link wherever you have that in the email, right? Now, something to know is when these Stripe invoices are built, read the description here. It's going to create a Stripe invoice with all of the line items from the deal, right? So we're using the line items on the deal to actually generate that invoice. So it's important that you have your line items on the deal already, and that will go ahead and generate an invoice link. So again, guys, the whole kind of flow here, the ideal is that when you get to the point where you win a deal, maybe you win the deal when someone signs, but then you have to go and like generate an invoice to send to somebody else afterwards for the person who's actually gonna provide the credit card and actually make the purchase, right? This is a great way to kind of craft that end of your sales cycle to ensure that the invoice gets to the right person, it's automatically generated, and you're good to go. Hope that was helpful. If you guys have any other questions around canceling subscriptions automatically inside of Stripe via HubSpot using workflows, or you want to learn more about how to craft a perfect Stripe enabled sales process, especially when you get towards the end and you're sending out that invoice, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, where we're posting tons of videos like this telling you all about how to do commerce inside of HubSpot using Zebra and Stripe. And as always, you smash the like button if this was helpful, and let us know what sort of videos you want to see next. We're here to help. I hope you have an awesome day, and we'll see you in the next video.
And you know it was built happily.